Jørgen Skafte Rasmussen, a young guy from Denmark who founded DKW later on. August Horch, a young smith from West Germany who founded Horch and Audi later on. And Friedrich Opel, son of the founder Adam Opel, who turned the company into a car company later on. What do these three guys have in common? All three of them studied engineering in Mittweida, a small town in countryside Saxony. Now, why did these three young guys from far away go to the Saxon countryside and studied engineering there, instead of going to a large famous university? And how come these three became exceptionally successful in car industry and even founded their own car companies? Although we have to say that Rasmussen wasn't a very good student and was kicked out. And how come this small countryside university produced so many more successful engineers like Gerhard Neumann, jet engine specialist and vice president of General Electric, Bruno Golecki, German rocket specialist, Ernst Sachs, inventor of the electric soldering iron, and Walter Zimmer, inventor of the Zimmerring, or radial shaft seal, to name a few. So something must be special about this small university. To understand why this university is so special, we have to take a few steps back in history. Saxony was always known for its iron resources, and hence there were a lot of businesses for metal production. In the 19th century, with industrialization, more and more machines were introduced to increase productivity of the companies. World leader was the United Kingdom with its expertise in steam engines. In the small Saxon town Mittweida, the first power loom was introduced in 1864. That was a large weaving machine driven by an external power and not through human force anymore. This external power was usually a steam engine. There were lots of mechanics in the area and people who knew how to work with metal, but there was no one who knew about steam engines. So Oskar Rissmann, one of the local businessmen, advertised an engineer's position for his company in Mittweida. He received a letter from Wilhelm Heinrich Uhland, a young talented mechanical engineer who studied in Stuttgart and was looking for a new challenge. He was hired by Rissmann in November 1864, and suddenly there was an engineer in town. He could explain the new technology to Rissmann's company, and they were now also able to update their large machines and set them up more efficiently. Because the 24-year-old engineer Uhland opened a new world for the local company, his boss Rissmann asked him to give a presentation about steam engines in the local pub to the local businesses in December 1864. This first presentation was so successful that they decided to have such a technology evening once per week. Soon the idea came up to educate the local youth in engineering in a proper, structured way. So the local business club and Uhland decided to found their own private engineering school. That was possible in Saxony because it was a so-called free state, which at the time meant they could found their own private school and get it approved by the state Saxony. That was different in the neighbor state Prussia, where all education was led by the state. So they founded the Technical Institute Mittweida in May 1865, just 6 months after Uhland's arrival. Special about this school was that, in contrast to large universities, they didn't just teach theory. They very much concentrated on hands-on engineering in exactly the areas the local businesses needed. So they were not just lecture rooms, they also had large workshops and laboratories, so the students could apply their knowledge. But funding was a problem from the very beginning, and after arguments between Uhland, local businesses and the city of Mittweida, Uhland left to the neighbor city Frankenberg, where he founded a new institute, but ran into the same funding problems later on. One of his teachers in Mittweida, Karl Georg Weitzel, an engineer from Mannheim, became director and re-established the school in 1867. They started with 17 students and already had 185 students in 1873. Despite constant funding issues, the school was expanding and became one of the largest and best private engineering schools in Germany and was famous in whole Europe. In 1884 they started teaching electrical engineering, and 2 years later they already had a lecture room with electric light. In 1909 they started teaching aeronautical engineering, and from 1917 telecommunication. The university's workshop was operating at such a high level that they didn't just teach in there, they also produced precision machines and even their own self-designed equipment for the university. In the middle of the 1920s, the Technical Institute Mittweida reached their highest number of students, with 2,300. In the 1930s, they couldn't keep their independent leadership and were controlled by the state. After the war, in East Germany, under Russian occupation, the institute was under state control again and couldn't act as freely as it did before. After the German reunion, the institute in Mittweida started over and established itself as a capable university of applied science with around 7,000 students per year. But it couldn't reach the glory and popularity it had 100 years ago. But many other universities followed the successful concept of teaching hands-on engineering in close cooperation with local companies. I myself studied automotive and aeronautical engineering in Ingolstadt, and that's a small university which is tailored for the local companies Audi and Airbus. More than 50% of the students already have a contract with the company and they get paid while studying. After they graduate, they don't look for jobs, they actually have to work for the companies which paid them during their study. Because these companies know that these students learned exactly what they needed. And I did my master at Cranfield University in Advanced Motorsport Engineering. That's another example of a course that is tailored for the needs of the local motorsport teams. There's even a so-called steering committee, which consists of high-ranking people from F1 teams and other categories, who decide what the students will learn in this course. So these universities don't just teach theory, they teach you things hands-on and what companies really need, and hence stay up to date with the latest technology. If a student from one of these courses is knocking the door of companies, they know that this person learned more than just the theory. And that explains the success of this education model. See you at the next video.